So welcome to our webinar today on how to use cold email prospecting to generate B2B leads and demand for your company. My name is Mike Faraday. I'm the host of our webinar. I'll be taking you through this presentation today. I'm also the CEO of Pro Sales Connection. And that's a picture of me there. So I lead Pro Sales Connection, and we've been running this company for about 12 years. And one thing that we have a lot of experience with is how to use cold email to generate engagement, leads, and demand for not only ourselves, but for our clients. And so we're going to share some of our best practices today, some of the things that we've noticed work really well, and some things that we know don't work as well. So I'll take us through about 5 really best practices that we've developed and discovered or confirmed over the years, and 5 what I will call mistakes or things that we see people making that really impact their ability to be totally effective. And so that's kind of the nature and the structure of our conversation today. I'll tell you, I know everyone is super busy. Everyone has got a lot of responsibility and things that they got to get done. And so I want to tell you that I'm personally grateful that you wanted to spend a few minutes with me and our team today, looking at this content and participating in our webinar today. Really appreciate the time and attention that you're giving us. Out of respect for you, I will make sure that we end this presentation at around the 45-minute mark. And make sure that you've got plenty of time to get yourself settled in and ready for the rest of your day or meetings that you may have at the top of the hour. So that's my commitment to you. We won't spend a ton of time talking about superfluous things, and we'll stick to our topics. I will share a couple slides about our business and how we help companies, but we'll really get into the content. That's where we're going to spend the bulk of our time today. So you're in the right place if you have an inside or an in-house team of sales development reps that are responsible for generating new sales meetings. Or if you have a team of sales professionals that are also tasked with outbound prospecting to generate new sales meetings. And finally, you're in the right place if you're an individual salesperson and you're using outbound tactics like cold calling and emailing as a part of your ongoing pipeline development process. So you're in the right place. If this fits you, this sounds like you or your organization, I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're with us today, and hopefully you get a lot of good takeaways from this. So most of the time when I'm talking to people about these topics, they're usually concerned with wanting to either improve their use of email as a prospecting tactic, or they might just be researching this idea of cold email as a tactic to add to your pipeline building process. So maybe you're doing some other things today, you haven't really explored cold email, not really sure if it's a good fit for you, and you're interested in learning more about it. So hopefully I can give you some thoughts to consider around that idea today. So here's why this webinar is important. And why the information is really relevant and important to you now. There are shifting market conditions. We all know it's a new world. 2020 has been an absolutely insane year. Market conditions are really unpredictable right now. The pandemic has caused a lot of distraction. It's caused organizations to try to do business differently, which they hadn't necessarily planned for, with virtual employees. Your customers are maybe more difficult to reach than they used to be, or maybe they prefer to be reached different ways. A lot of times the phone isn't working maybe like it has historically for you, and you're looking at other ways to try to get in touch with your prospects, and you're considering email. Hey, we're at the fourth quarter, with the beginning of the fourth quarter, I guess almost the middle of the fourth quarter now. So salespeople and sales organizations might be behind on their numbers. And email could be a way for you to reach more of your target customers at scale, either to close out the year strong or to put you in a position to build a more robust pipeline heading into first quarter and 2021. And in some cases, we're doing more with less. In some cases, our organizations are a little bit smaller than they used to be. Maybe you're carrying a bigger territory if you're an individual salesperson. bigger territory than you normally have, and you're looking for a more efficient way to have meaningful touches with your prospects and your customers. And so that's why this information I think is really relevant for today's time. So just a little bit about ProSales Connection. As I mentioned, we started the business in 2009. Over the years, we've generated over $1 billion in sales pipeline for our customers. In those 12 years, we've made over 2 million cold calls, and we're obviously 100% invested in our clients' growth. And so that's just some of the high level look at the business. We won't go a whole lot deeper than that, other than to just kind of talk through what our strategy is for helping our clients grow their business, and that is around this concept of fastest path to revenue that we've developed. Since 2009, we've really used this idea to refine and fine-tune a process for getting real sales pipeline built for our customers. We've designed our process for B2B companies, primarily who sell complex or technical solutions. It's a full funnel approach. So we start the process at the very top of the funnel. If you're familiar with the idea of a sales and marketing funnel, we start this process at the very top with awareness. We work it all the way through to engagement and all the way down into the sales process, where we're really working opportunities and closing deals. And so we support every step of that process for our clients. We don't close deals typically as a standard rule, but we do enable that process for our clients, either through marketing automation or through coaching and counseling and consulting with our clients. And what we found is this fastest path to revenue process is really ideal for validating target accounts, personas, and the value proposition. And email will play a part in that, and we'll talk a little bit about that as we kind of get into our presentation today. So here's some high-level stats to just frame some of our conversation today. The first is 40% of salespeople say that prospecting is the most challenging part of the sales process. And we always think about closing as being the hardest part of the sales process. Salespeople have shared that 40% of the time, it's the prospecting part that's hardest for them, compared to 30% or 36% for closing. Only 24% of sales emails are opened. That's less than a quarter of the emails, sales emails that are being sent by salespeople are being opened. And so we've got a real challenge. So you've got your first big opportunity is, how do I get more of my emails delivered and opened? That's table stakes. We have to solve that problem before we can even get into whether or not my message is effective and it's actually creating the engagement that I look for. I guess, and finally, I wanted to share, it takes an average of 18 calls to connect with the buyer. That's a stat I found recently, and our results are slightly different than that, but it just illustrates, I think, the point that there's a tremendous amount of effort has to be made before we can reach customers. And if it's going to take 18 phone calls to get in touch with the buyer, if you can offset some of those touches with email, that can have a really positive impact on the overall efficiency of your sales effort, but also your ability, increase your ability to build the sales pipeline that you need to make your organization's goals. And those stats came from HubSpot, and they're based on 2019 data, so it's relatively new data and a trusted source. So defining, I want to take a moment just to define what the sales prospecting email is. What it is, it's a personalized email to a cold prospect. It's sent individually to a prospect through your email client or a CRM. Okay, that's what I will be talking about today, is personalized one-to-one email to a cold prospect sent individually through your client your email client. What it's not is a customized email blast to a list of cold prospects. That's not what we're talking about today. It's sent or it's not a message sent en masse to a list of prospects via an email marketing tool or marketing automation platform. Okay, So those are different, those are entirely different animals. And we'll talk a little bit about some of the differences and when to use one versus the other, but I just want to make that distinction here. This is not about mass email or email blasting big lists. Okay, this is about the one-to-one sales prospecting type emails that individual salespeople will be sending to individual prospects. All right. So mastering B2B cold email prospecting, 5 ways to improve your cold email effectiveness. So now I want to dig in next with just what are some of the 5 best ways that we can improve our effectiveness. Let's see. Number 1. All right, number 1, understand what your goal is. It's really, really important to understand what you're trying to accomplish with your email marketing. Before an email can be read, it has to be delivered. Okay, it has to get to the inbox. And that means avoiding some of the basic spam triggers. That's your first thing. The goal of your first sentence is to get the second sentence read. And the goal of the second sentence is to get the third sentence read. We really have to look at what we're trying to accomplish, and we have to really boil it down to its basic core, and that is I need to get the email read, and I need to get a reply, because any reply that I get from my customer is going to be useful. A negative reply gives us an opportunity for an exchange, and you can then disqualify them or remove them from the list, and so that can be productive. But getting a positive reply is obviously what our goal is. But it's not going to happen a lot. Let's be honest. People are not going to respond to a lot of your cold messages. It's just the reality. So our goal is not, although our goal is to get a reply, it can be very productive just to get that meaningful touch in front of that customer, to share your message, and hopefully it gets seen. At a minimum, your name gets seen, or your company's address gets seen, or they took a look at the message and they skimmed it, and they're starting to become aware of who you are. It may take 7 to 12 touches to get a sale. So you just have to complete one more. You've just completed one more of those touches, and that's really productive, and it's worth doing, and it ultimately will contribute to your success. So it's also worth mentioning here that to avoid getting unceremoniously added to the spam folders, it's a big, and that's a big topic that we're not really going to get into detail, other than I just want to remind you of just some of the basic spam triggers. When you're sending these emails out, you have to be very careful and don't fall into some of the basic spam traps. The first is, don't use spammy words and phrases like it's an amazing offer for free, or limited time offer, or reply now for once in a lifetime pricing. Okay, spam filters are sophisticated. They will pick up on that kind of language, and they might put you in a spam folder. It might send you right to either block your message or send you to junk. So don't fall into that trap of using that kind of language. And it's not going to be effective anyway, so don't use it anyway. Don't write in all caps. All caps, lots of caps in an email will trigger spam filters. Avoid excessive punctuation, like putting 10 exclamation marks in your subject line after your message. Don't do it. The spam filters will pick up on that. Try to avoid attaching documents if you can, especially documents like executable files or zip files. Just leave them off. If you need to share a document like that or a file like that with the customer, wait till you've got some engagement with them and that they're expecting it, and you even give them a heads up like, hey, this is what the file's going to look like when it gets there, so they know. All right, so number 1, understand what your goal is. It's to get your messages read, replied to, and to try to get a positive reply. Okay, number 2, email goes hand in hand with calling, not instead of it. Do not look at cold email as a substitute for picking up the phone and calling your customers. If you rely exclusively on sending emails, you will not be successful. You will not build the pipeline that you need to build to grow your business. It has to go in conjunction with and be combined with an effective outbound calling process. You want to let one activity really support the next in your outreach. So you might want to say things like, you might want to send emails that say, look, this is regarding my voicemail from this morning. Whenever you connect the two things, it's more meaningful to the prospect. The prospect's going to get tons of cold email. We all do. You get it, I get it, we all get it. They get tons of cold email that gets through the spam filters and it gets into their inbox. But when that message is combined with a voicemail that they heard this morning, then they see the email, they're thinking, wow, this is actually different. This isn't just a blast that someone sent out to 10,000 people. This person is actually really interested in meeting with me. It starts to give them a sense that that they're being pursued and that they feel special, right? And that's what we want them to do. We want them to know that we actually are very interested in having a conversation directly with them. So let these things work together. It's one coordinated approach, not two separate activities. And whenever you combine your email with voicemail or phone calls, they start to realize that you're a real person. And it's not just a software doing this work on the background or some automation. It's a real person. So that will increase the chances of that email being responded to or that voicemail being returned. Okay, so make sure that you're combining calling with emailing. Number 3, you want to write a powerful email body that adds real value and begs to be read. Begs to be read. So you want to personalize the greetings. That's the first thing you want to do. So this is a non-negotiable. The only emails people get with hello, comma, or greetings, exclamation mark, and then go into their body are spam. It's the only time they get that on emails. So every email needs to be addressed directly to the person that you're trying to reach. Make sure you spell their name correct. Make sure that you're using any appropriate titles or appropriate formality depending on the market that you're pursuing. If you're approaching doctors, I would encourage you to use Dr. Smith and not just Joe, okay? If you're, certainly if you're approaching the military, you'll want to address people by their rank and their title formally, okay? So just understand your market and make sure that you're communicating with them appropriately. Keep it short and to the point. Your email should be succinct. Okay, your recipients will be able to preview your email, which will include the first line of your email. So whenever they open this up on their phone or maybe in their email client, they're going to see the first line or two. That first line or two has to create enough curiosity and interest in their mind that they stop and go, okay, I have to read the rest of this. What is this about? I want to hear more about what this person's talking about. Telling stories and jokes and little clever little puns and things like that I see people use. Look, save it. Okay, there's all kinds of different ways and times for using that type of communication. When you're trying to send a cold email to someone who doesn't know who you are, it's not the right time to try to be cute. Okay, you want to be succinct. You want to be focused on them, and you want to try to engage them as quickly as you can. And you're not going to get that with some goofy little joke at the beginning of your message. Keep it out. Just throw it out. Studies show that the shorter the email is, the quicker the response time and the more responses that you'll get. So we always recommend that a cold email, like the gold standard is 200 words, okay? Look at your messages, figure out what can be taken out so that you are under 200 words. The shorter and the more succinct it is, that still grabs their attention and engages them and is focused on them and their life and their problems, the better off you're going to be. But you need to be able to do that in 200 words. Look, there was a line in Hamlet that says, brevity is the soul of wit. That's your challenge. How do I employ brevity here to make a bigger impact? Make it about them. It's the final thought, right? So make it about them. It's not about you. It's not about who you are and what you've done and the things that you've accomplished and the success that your business has had or all the all the amazing things that you're accomplishing. That's not there'll be time for that. this first message right now needs to be them focused. It needs to be customer focused. Get to their problem as quickly as you can. Open a story loop. This is a bigger idea we don't have time to really dig into today, but Google story loops and investigate the idea of opening a story loop that inspires your prospect or customer to read the next line because it's about them. So as an example, getting a customer to reply to email was a challenge until we changed our opening statement. That's an example. All right, that's a quote. Getting a customer to reply to our email was a challenge until we changed our opening statement. Now, when I say that to a prospect, they really want to know, well, what was the change? What was the statement, right? And so it really speaks to opening the story loop in their mind that people are psychologically just drawn to closing the loop. I need to hear the rest of the story. Okay, so use that strategy as to your advantage. And stay focused on the benefits to them and not the features of your product and service. Again, there'll be time to talk about the feature, function, benefits of your product. There'll be time to share your case studies. There'll be time for that. Right now, you need to articulate the problem that the customer is having and just give them the idea that you might be the answer to that problem. Okay, that's all we're trying to get done here in this first message. All right. Number 4, offer a crystal clear call to action. If you ask for a reply, help them make it super easy by telling them what to say to you. So what do you want them to do? It could be as simple as reply yes, and I'll send you the additional information, or reply info kit, and I'll send you the link to our 12-page information kit. Tell them exactly what you want them to do. I think giving them some direction around an easy reply is oftentimes more effective than almost any other call to action that you might put in a message. Certainly, including links in your messages can work. It's something that you should really, really do cautiously and should test whether or not it's impacting your ability to get the messages delivered, and secondly, whether or not people are replying at a higher rate. So I would really, in some cases, we might test the same message with 2 different call to actions, right? And I'll talk a little bit about that, I think, on another slide. But even if you get that link through, if you use a link, even if you get that link through a firewall, people are sometimes suspicious of links in emails from people they don't know. And anything that might affect the deliverability should be limited, as it could have a long-term impact on your ability to get other emails delivered. So if you get blacklisted because of the nature of one of these cold emails, and it makes it harder for you to get other emails delivered to that customer's domain, that's no good, right? So just be really careful, tread lightly, measure the results, and watch really closely what the impact of including links in your emails is doing at this stage in the game. Okay, that's number 4. Number 5, our last point, test everything. I sort of started to talk about that a moment ago. So test everything. Test your email addresses before you add them to your list or to your CRM. Okay, use a service like Never Bounce is one that we're fond of. Take your customers list with all the email addresses, send it, you can upload it to Never Bounce. You'll get the answer back almost instantaneously. It'll tell you which addresses are still good, which ones are bouncing, which ones are suspect that you might want to consider removing from your database. That way you're not sending out emails that are getting bounced. That will ultimately affect the long-term deliverability of emails from your inbox and from your domain. So don't do it, be careful. A/B test subject lines. Look, take the same message, change the subject line, and figure out what is driving the opens. Okay, so test the subject lines. Your subject lines get the email open, but your email body is what really drives your response rates. Okay, so the copy inside your message is what's going to get people to engage with your content or not. Okay, it's not, so the subject line is really going to tell you whether or not I'm on topic and I'm talking to the right people. Your body of your messages, you've already got past that hurdle. You're talking to the right person. The message is the right message for them. Now, this is your opportunity to engage them and to get them to respond. So when they respond, it's a factor of really two things. Is my message on point? Did I communicate my idea clearly and succinctly enough? And if we're measuring this based on response, is my call to action strategy the right strategy? So like I mentioned in the last message or the last slide, consider just asking for a reply versus using a link. Okay, if you're going to use, if you are going to use a link and that you don't think that that's negatively impacting your response rate, then test the text that you use in your link. Test using the actual URL. Test using some hyperlinked text. What is that text? Click here. Maybe get yours now. Like, think about different ways that you can test the actual link text. Adding CTAs to a PS line in your message can sometimes be really, really effective. Consider how many times you're adding call to actions inside your message. Maybe you should have in a couple different places, a couple different ways. Test a button versus the link. Instead of just using a link, a hyperlink, maybe you embed a button on the site so that it looks a little sharper and a little more refined. Some people will be more inclined to click a button. Others would never click a button because they don't know what's going to happen on the other side of it. So you want to test these ideas. Test everything. All right. So now I want to shift gears a little bit. So we talked about some of the best practices, some things that you absolutely want to make sure that you're doing. Now we're going to talk for a moment about some mistakes that we see people make. Some of the biggest mistakes that sales people and sales organizations make when it comes to using cold email as a demand generation strategy. So number one, and I debated whether or not to even include this here, because if you're a professional, then you already understand that this is a no-no, but I still see it happening over and over again. So I think it bears repeating. Don't be deceptive. Look, lying or tricking a prospect is never a good way to start a relationship. Okay, just don't do it. Just be really clear. Don't try to trick people. Tricking people will not work in the long run. Don't add, this is another little thing I see people do. Don't add re-colon, don't make them look messages or reply to that you sent. Okay, people see right through that stuff. It's a spammy trick. It might get your email open, but then they're going to be really pissed off whenever they realize what you've done. Okay, so just don't do it. It's just going to get you added to your junk list or blacklisted, or automatically sent to their blocked or automatically sent to their junk folder. Okay, don't do it. If you didn't review their website or you haven't read their blog, don't say you have. And in fact, go a step further. If you did do it, then mention it in detail. Mention the name of the blog that you read, and even better, mention what you liked about it or what point you thought was really insightful, or what page on their site that you read that, and mention an image that you saw. Like, make sure if you're going to include that, do it because you've taken the time to either review the website or read their blog or whatever it might be, whatever you're claiming to have done, and then support it with some supporting data that the customer will, or the prospect will read and go, okay, well, obviously they actually looked at the site. They actually looked at it. And then finally, look, don't tell them you know someone that you don't. You never know who knows who or who sits across the desk from someone else. It's just not worth it. I mean, how embarrassing to say, hey, I was talking with so-and-so the other day and they told me that I should meet with you. And that person sits right next, 6 feet away from that person, and he turns around and says, hey, did you get a message from so-and-so? Did you talk to them? And they're like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Like, you don't know the situation, right? So don't try to deceive people. Don't think that you're talking to a guy in another part of the company there's no way that he's going to know whether you spoke to that other person or not. Like, just don't do it. So don't be deceptive. Be truthful. Be sincere. All right, number two. This is a big one, guys. Don't sell on a cold email. remember the very first slide, I said, understand what your goal is. Your goal is to get your message read and to get it responded to. Your goal is not, or it should not be, to try to sell something on a cold email. There is no B2B prospect out there that I've found, at least, that's going to be buying any sort of high value solution that they're going to buy that on a cold email. So stop trying to sell on your cold messages, okay? Sell the next step. That's it. So why should that customer invest time in taking the next step with you? What's in it for them to just reply to this message? What's in it to them to check out a link, to watch a video, to answer a question? What's in it for them? That's all you're selling, is what's in it for them to take the very next step. Don't try to go too far with the cold email. It won't work. It's like asking someone to get married and have kids on the first date. Okay, just there's a time and a place for everything. You're not there yet. Okay, so don't try to. People try to. Well, if I can skip some steps, then I can get more done faster. It just won't work. Okay. So number 3, don't attach. We talked a little bit about this already. So don't attach documents to your cold emails. You know, even if the email address reaches, or email reaches the inbox, your recipient is not going to risk opening your attached files and will delete your emails just to be safe. Okay, that's what you would do. So that's what they're going to do. They might even block your emails as an extra precaution. They don't know who you are. It seems spammy. Why are you attaching things to this message? And I don't know who you are, and I don't know what this is regarding. And then in some cases, you know, most companies have strict IT security policies about opening attachments from external sources because of the risk of malware. It's just too big a risk. It's not worth it. Okay, so don't include those documents. Don't ask people to open documents as an attachment. As an alternative, you might want to use a hyperlink to a document if you think that that's really important, but you'll want to test it, as we've talked about. HubSpot, which is a really powerful marketing automation CRM platform. HubSpot has a feature that allows you to create a library of documents. And the reason I'm mentioning it here is when you include the links to those documents in your library, it'll actually give you some analytics as well and some notifications. So not only by including a link using a platform like that, and there may be others that do this, I'm just more familiar with HubSpot, I can get some analytics so I can know, hey, how many times are these links getting clicked on inside my emails? And then I might send an email with a link and the person clicks on it on day 1, and then 5 days later I get a notification that they've clicked on it again. Okay, this is obviously a strong signal. I might want to pick up the phone right then and call that prospect back and try to engage them over the phone because I know that they've recently looked at the document for the second time. Right, so use that data to your advantage, okay? But again, I always recommend testing links versus messages without links to just make sure. Your first hurdle is getting the daggum email into the inbox, okay? That's your first hurdle, right? So if you can cross that hurdle, then we can start to figure out other ways to try to make the emails more effective. All right, number 4. Stopping at just one email. Look, you can't send one email and go, well, it didn't work, no one replied. Remember, your prospects are not just sitting around waiting for your emails. They're busy people. They've got a lot of responsibility. They might have more responsibility now than they had 6 months ago. Okay, so be sensitive to that and understand that the onus is on you to try to give them a reason to engage. Simply adding a second step. So I found some metrics I thought were really interesting. So adding a second step to your campaign can increase your reply rates by 105%. And having 3 or more follow-ups will boost your reply rates by 377% when compared to a single email. Like, the data is super clear. Not only is it just logical, but the data actually supports it. If you're going to go to the trouble of sending a cold email to your prospects, then you make sure that you've got a plan to send them 3, 4, 5 messages before you give up, okay? I recommend that at least 3, but it might make sense to send as many as 7 to 10, depending on your market and your solution and your customers. Also, because you're sending multiple messages, take the time to vary the time of day and the day of the week that you send these messages out. be thoughtful, be mindful about when you're sending these emails out. If you send, the last time you sent emails, you did it all on Monday. Next week, you might send them all on Tuesdays. You might just try to move that around. If you send in the morning, try in the afternoon. People have schedules. I know I'm more inclined to look at a message if I receive it at certain times of the day versus other times of the day, because I either have standing meetings or my work is just scheduled where I'm less available to look at email, right? So just think about varying that up, changing that up, and see how it impacts your ability to get responses. Pro tip. So people are busy and maybe they've been meaning to reply to you, but they just haven't had a chance yet. So one little strategy here is, when you do, let's say you create a 5 email sequence and you're going to send out 5 emails in a row, maybe once a week for 5 weeks. When you get to that last email, in some cases, even the second to last email, you might want to start this process. Let them know that, hey, you know, I have sent you multiple emails up to this point. I haven't heard from you, and I understand that you just may be busy. This may not be the best time to reach out to me or to reply. Maybe you've been wanting to get in touch with me, but you just haven't had a chance yet. I just want to let you know that if you want to reach me, just hit reply and let me know when's a better time for me to follow up with you again. Because after today, I won't be messaging you for a little while, because I certainly don't want to be a pest. Okay, so let them know that, hey, this sequence, these emails that I've been sending you, they're going to end, and today might be the last one that I'm going to send to you. So if you've been hanging on to these thinking, I need to get back to this guy because I really want to hear from him, I really want to talk to him, you know, just send me a quick reply and say, give me 2 weeks. Just tell them what you want them to do. And so that right there, there's a lot of people who are just busy and they got the first message like, that's interesting. They get the second message like, oh, I remember this guy. That was interesting. He sent me that message last week. I really want to get back to this guy. And they don't. The third email comes and they're like, oh, shoot, I still haven't talked to that guy. When I get that last email and says, hey, I'm not, this is the last message I'm going to send you. So obviously you're busy. This isn't a good time for you. Totally understand. But if you're just waiting, or you just got some other things going on, but you would like to talk to me, let me know when I can call you back. When you know, it would be a better time for me to follow up with you. And then when you do, and then schedule the follow-up, because a lot will depend on your ability to follow through. If they say call me in 2 weeks, call them in 2 weeks. If they say email me in 10 days, email them in 10 days. If they say follow up with me in the fall, make sure you follow up with them in the fall. You have to, at a bare minimum, do exactly what they asked you to do, and then remind them that they had asked you to do it. That's obviously your next message is going to start with that idea. All right, number 4. The last thing there is just stop and let the list cool off. Once you've you know, really worked the list of people that you were reaching out to, it's not the right time for most of them, obviously. Just let the list cool off a little bit. Start working a different list. So organize your day so that you work intensely on a group of people and then let it cool off, and work intensely on another group of people and then come back to your first list or your second list, or just kind of manage it that way. You're better off doing it in spurts of real intense engagement or real intense outreach, and then just backing off a little bit, rather than a slow and steady trickle indefinitely. That will just eventually just get ignored. Okay. Number 5, subject lines are weak. Look, if you're using weak subject lines, you never get the opportunity to engage them. So 66% of emails are open on mobile devices today. I don't know if you realize that. 66%. So if so many of your messages, 2/3 of your messages are being read on mobile devices, you need to sort of calibrate your messages for that medium. iPhone only shows 41 characters in the subject line. Android phones usually show about 30 characters in the subject line of email clients. So you have to make sure that your subject lines are very succinct. Make sure that you get right to the point. so that when I look at that subject line in my email client on my phone, I get the gist of what it is that you're wanting to talk about. It's compelling enough that I want to open the message and look at it further. You have a 6% increase in the open rate when the subject line includes the recipient's name. Okay, 6% can go a long way over months and months and thousands of messages, right? So it's something you should absolutely test, including your prospect's name in the subject line. So Mike, comma, this message is for you, right? Include their name. We talked about a little bit earlier about being deceptive. Look, don't use the reply or the forward sort of RE colon or FWD colon. Don't use that in the subject lines if you're just adding it. Okay, just don't be deceptive there. Never use it unless you actually have done it. And then don't use clickbaity subject lines like account status or our meeting if we never had a meeting. Like, don't trick people into opening messages. They will resent you for it and they will punish you for it. Okay, they just don't have time for it. They won't tolerate it. They get too many cold emails. Just be real and authentic and succinct. And then finally, make sure that your subject line matches your content, the content of your message. Look, be honest and be congruent. Okay, if your message is talking about one subject, then your body should be aligned. The body of your message should be aligned to the topic that you've mentioned in the subject line. Okay, if they're not congruent, people will be put off by it and they'll feel like they've been tricked, and you end up in the junk folder again. All right, so be honest and congruent. All right, bonus, never sell or ask for a meeting on a mass email. Look, this is just something I kind of mentioned this before, but your mass emailing, which is an extremely legitimate and viable marketing strategy, but it's marketing and not sales. Okay, so sending out mass email is absolutely something you should be doing, but it should be done carefully and it should not be done as a demand generation strategy. You should not be asking for meetings through mass email, one-to-many emails. It's hard enough to get your B2B prospects to engage with a personalized one-to-one email. They're not going to respond positively to a mass email. Okay, mass email should be used to build relationships with your brand and not with a salesperson. Okay, that's just something that I see a lot of salespeople thinking when they think about cold email. They think, oh, pull a list, write a message, blast it out, and ask people for a meeting. It won't work, and it will negatively impact your business in the long run. Okay, it's just not the right medium for that type of message. All right. All right, that was a lot of information. I told you guys I wouldn't take more than 45 minutes for this, so we're going to go really quickly through the rest of this. There's not much more that I want to share with you other than just here's a quick overview of some of the services that ProSales Connection offers. We actually manage outbound calling programs for our clients. We will do email outreach, as we've been talking about today, paid advertising, content marketing, or inbound type marketing programs. Inbound lead qualification. So if you're generating a massive leads today and your challenge is getting those leads responded to quickly and effectively and with rigor and discipline, that's a service that we can do that can really plug in to your process. And of course, we can help with all kinds of digital events, webinars, and all the marketing process around driving people to those events and then doing the follow-up from those events. All right, so that's just a very high level on some of the things that we do. I've just highlighted a few of our customer success stories. I won't spend any time reading these to you, but we've been at this for a while and we can have a massive impact on pipeline development. All right, so questions. We're really done with our presentation today. So I just want to share with you, look, when you're ready to grow your B2B company faster and you want to establish a really refined and coherent demand generation process that works at scale, I'd love it if you give us an opportunity to talk to you about how we can help you do that. and help your business build the pipeline that it needs to make its goals in 2021. If you'd like to have a conversation with that, I'll talk to anyone for 15 minutes. You can use this link right here, just prosalesconnection.com/15-minute exploratory call. If you use that link, you will be able to book some time with me, or just go to prosalesconnection.com. That link is all over the site, and you can book 15 minutes with me. I'd love to spend a few minutes with you, learning a little bit about your business and answering questions for you. I'd love that. Thank you very much. Here's how to get in touch with me. That's my email address. As I mentioned, the 15-minute exploratory call, there's the link to that. We're done. So if you have things to do, please have a wonderful day. If you'd like to hang out and ask some questions, I'll take a look at the questions now and try to respond to people. So if you want to hang out, I'll be happy to do that. So I got a question about whether or not the slide deck will be shared after the webinar. Absolutely. Not only will the slide deck be shared, but we will also include a link to the recording of the webinar as well. So you can watch that back again or share it with your colleagues or anyone you think would enjoy seeing it. So thanks for that question. Any other questions about the content today? Any questions that you came into this conversation or this presentation looking to get answered about cold email that I didn't address, that you want to get my thoughts on it? See, I've got another question coming in here. How do I feel about texting? I think texting, it really will depend on your market. I don't think texting is a great way to start a conversation, because I really feel like people need to opt into that. But once you've had a meeting with a customer, I think it's okay, and I'm certainly doing more of this, is asking my customers, would you be comfortable getting a text message from me about that? And if they opt into texting, if they say yes, then I love using texting as a way to as another way to touch the prospect and to increase engagement. Sometimes that tough to reach prospect, after you've already had a meeting, sending a text message might be an appropriate step to try to re-engage them. Sometimes if I'm not getting replies to emails or phone calls, but I've already met with them, that's the important part. I have to have already met with them, and they have to have already given me their cell phone number. Then I might send them a quick text saying, hey, I've been trying to reach you. I was wondering if we could set up some time, or I wonder if you could look at this one thing for me, or I wonder if you could answer a quick question for me, just to see if I can get a conversation started. How do I feel about Merge as a personal way to reach customers that's not a blasting service? Okay. That's what I would call customization versus personalization. And there is a distinction between those two. So I think that there is a place for using customized mass email for engaging prospects, but I don't think it is a demand generation strategy. It should be used as a way to build your brand and build a connection with the customer, and then giving them on that message a step to take that would allow you to then engage them in a more direct one-on-one fashion. Okay, that use it as a way for them to raise their hand to say, I'm interested in knowing more about you, and I'm interested in engaging with you further. And then you might transition to a one-to-one kind of a conversation with the prospect. But I'm just not a fan of mass email, even if it's personalized with mail merge, or customized, I should say, with mail merge, to make it seem like a one-to-one message. Ultimately, I don't think it works that well. Let's see. Oh, thank you for the comment on the beard. Yes, it is an epic beard. Thank you very much. That is my post Kilimanjaro beard. I climbed Kilimanjaro in 2019 and couldn't quite let it go. So thanks for the comment. I appreciate that. Any other questions? Any other questions? Got a couple minutes here. I'll just out until the top of the hour. We still got some folks on the line who are, looks like they may be type in some questions, so send them over. Look, was this information useful? Did you pick up at least one thing today that challenged an idea that you were doing or inspired you with a thought that you didn't have before? I'd love to hear some feedback on the presentation itself, whether or not we hit the mark, whether or not we delivered on the expectation. We always want to make sure that we're congruent. I want to follow my own advice. If we told you we were going to talk about how to make email marketing work for sales development, I want to make sure we did that. So if you have any feedback for me, love that. All right. Give everyone just a moment here, make sure I've responded to everyone, all the messages that we're getting. Thanks so much for engaging. Let's see. All right. Well, thanks for the positive feedback. Thank you guys folks who just put a message in there about what they've thought about the presentation. So thank you for that feedback. I really appreciate it. We will have another webinar. I forgot to mention that earlier. We do these monthly. They're always focused on the sales and marketing process and how to be more effective at building sales pipeline, which is ultimately what we're after. We're a very unique marketing and sales agency in that we don't really measure our success based on how beautiful things are or clicks or views or traffic. Ultimately, we measure our success based on how effective we are at building sales pipeline for our customers, because ultimately that's what you need to grow your business. And we are a growth-oriented marketing agency. So design is only relevant when it's going to impact our ability to build sales pipeline. That's when design is important. Design for the sake of design isn't really interesting to us. So we're a little bit different from that perspective. We like to make the cash register ring. That's what we're about. So thank you for your feedback. I appreciate everyone's participation and attention today. We know you got a lot of things that you can do. There's a lot going on. So the fact that you took 45 minutes to spend it with me today, I'm just really grateful for it. So with that said, I will go ahead and wrap up our meeting today. Look for a follow-up message from us in the next few days, and where we'll send out the materials. And please schedule a 15-minute call with me if you'd like to have a quick conversation about how we might be able to add value to your pipeline development process. Anyway, thanks everyone, and have a great day.